Hello. Who are you?
Oh, wait a second. Yeah, I cannot let that pass, you know. I'm just gonna make you wiggle a little. No, I have no need for scripts. You know, this is just raw stuff. This stuff's just coming out of me. You know, as soon as I wake up or I open my eyes, there's just stuff there. And I'm just trying to do something with it. And let us just have a look before I lecture you on the effects of coffee. Yeah, that's all not what I want. Okay, I thought I had Alice on here. Alice in Wonderland. Oh, there. Oh, wow. It's called actually Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Now, let us see. How many pages are there? I mean, this guy was a genius, but what you have to understand and should never forget is that that guy was probably insane. I mean, all the best people are. I think sometimes we just have to remember that everybody's insane in their own way. And that if you take me for granted, you know, you can push me actually into my insanity, and the question is whether or not you want to do that. I mean, I'm just saying, there's like stuff out there that shouldn't even be allowed or made available to the public, but at the same time, you cannot control these things, right? There's this show about this teenager that commits suicide, and it was famous on Netflix, and she released these tapes after her death and made sure they were sent to her friends, and it gave all the people that have ever been mowed down by someone else an excuse to say, you know what, I think suicide is awesome because I can rub it into all your faces that you screwed up. But the truth is, they're still there. You're gone, right? I mean, how much can you contribute to a better world if you take your life and try to even ruin other people's lives? Because that's basically what that show is about. You know, I kill myself, and now I want that everybody who I think drove me into insanity, you know, kills themselves as well. It's just stupid. And they only realized it after it has been released. I mean, shouldn't you question yourself on what you say? But the truth is, you don't know. So the only thing we can do as artists is just be responsible and say there are people. You know, if I make a movie like, you know, this Human Centipede crap, I watched 5 minutes and it was enough to sicken me for the rest of my life. If I show these things then there may be people who actually want to try that. That's what you have to realize. Do you want to be responsible for something like this happening? Or else, why would you do it? Like, what's the message of movies like Wrong Turn or The Ring? Yeah, I get it. The mind is a dark place. You know, let's create a world for children. I mean, isn't that what it's all about? Let's create a world for children. I mean, that should be the way it's been done. And that's why if you read, you know, the Mad Hatter in Alice in Wonderland is completely different than the one that Tim Burton brewed up with Johnny Depp. I don't know, but doesn't anyone ever get the feeling that Tim Burton is a really sick man? Just like, how's that guy called with all the blood always? What's his man? I mean, that's not clean stuff. That's just like, it's actually disgusting. I mean, that guy lives in the underworld. Without the perspective that the underworld is just another place for him, life is hell. And he tries to show it that way. And this is why Tim Burton's version of Alice in Wonderland is actually complete crap. It has nothing of this loose feeling of the actual story. Alice was thoroughly puzzled. Does the boots and shoes, she repeated in a wondering tone. Oh wait, does the boots and shoes, she repeated in a wondering tone. Why? What are your shoes done with? Said the Griffin. I mean, what makes them so shiny? Alice looked down at them and considered a little before she gave her answer. They're done with blacking, I believe. Boots and shoes under the sea, the Griffin went on in a deep voice, are done with withing. Now you know. And what are they made of? Alice asked in a tone of great curiosity. Soles and eels, of course, the Griffin replied, rather impatiently. Any shrimp could have told you that. It's like, yeah. If I'd been the Withing, said Alice, whose thoughts were still running on the song, I'd have said to the porpoise, keep back, please, we don't want you with us. You said for that I actually have to know what the withing is. And it may be that it's just a completely made up word, which all words are. A slender-bodied marine fish of the cod family. That's the first. You see, don't get too stuck on words. Because if you think, oh, the morning coffee is the most important drink in my day, that's just the doorway to an unhealthy relationship with a beverage. Just as if you think that polishing your car is the best thing for you to do, then you may have an unhealthy relationship with generally materialistic objects. So you should rather, I don't know, give your wife a gentle pat and open up the doorway to cuddling and, softness and, this kind of wiggliness that we call sex, which is basically merging into one another. If you drink a lot of coffee, you will get more toxic. I do use coffee to make art. Okay, some people use coffee simply, to work 12 or 15 hours. I make sprints of work and then I relax. I'm like a lion, right? I'm like a lion. I'm more like a sprinter. I sprint. I sprinted through creating or finalizing my final thesis in about 2 weeks. The majority, okay, I did all the analysis that took me a couple of months. And then I did, getting together all the information, but the finalizing I did in a 2-week sprint that drove me through insanity, and I drank lots of coffee. That was actually an interesting time because I roasted coffee myself. I bought, I'm just gonna say, you don't have to go to Tanzania, but it's an interesting idea. The first time I roasted coffee was in Tanzania, and we just bought green coffee beans from a market, and I roasted them in it's not stainless steel, it's this cast iron pan on a gas stove, right? A cast iron pan on a gas stove. That's what I used to roast coffee, and it was perfect. And then I tried to replicate that. That's the thing about experiences. It works once. Now it's your responsibility to figure out whether you want it to work again. So if you once, let's say did something on psychedelics or without, it doesn't matter, you may be afraid to touch it again, which is like drawing. If you once drew a comic strip and somebody threw it away, you can just do it again. That's the whole concept of letting go. You let go of things. Sometimes you let go of things for some time until they come back to you, and that's then the boomerang that Sokka throws to hit, Sparky Boom Man in the third eye. Which makes no sense, that the boomerang actually returns after that, because it would have just fallen on the ground, because the impact would have certainly changed the direction of the boomerang. Which is why we have to see comics also as an abstraction of the truth, where you can make things happen that are literally impossible in real life. There's no way you could throw a boomerang at such an angle, and probably especially not a boomerang in this shape, I wouldn't know, I haven't tried, and then get it back and catch it after it hits something, because it would just, the whole energy that keeps it going would have dissipated into the face of Sparky Boom Man, if you know what I mean. And that's just the whole point. So Sparky Boom Man may just be a guy who was really gentle, this really gentle kid who liked to walk around hugging trees, and then somebody came and said, "Hey, have you ever tried coffee, my friend?" And suddenly a really unhealthy relationship with a, supposedly toxic beverage was established, and he was like, "Wow, I can feel this powerful? I knew how to keep the energy on the inside, and now I know how to shout it into the world." Everybody drinks coffee. Terence McKenna, who most recordings of him were recorded in the 80s probably and 90s, and he already said, I mean, nobody walks around and says, hey, wow, I'm so high on sugar, coffee, and meat, I can barely take it. No, it's just been taken for granted. Everybody just thinks, this is the way to be and to feel. Everybody just rolls over each other. I mean, there's people that just say to each other, just go fucking kill yourself if you don't like it. Yeah, and what if I did? How shit would you feel? Well, I don't care. Yeah, how long can you pretend that for? I'm not trying to turn into Ramdas by the way, but he's there because I've listened to that guy. He was basically one of my best friends, and I still go back to him sometimes if I have a bad day. But if you learn to be Ramdas to yourself, or to just keep him in your heart, I mean, I don't have to hug the guy. I don't have to have live recordings of him, because I can fill my entire room with him if I want to. But he's also dead. So if I want someone that can show me how to deal with relevant subjects right now, such as pornography, right? Such as fear in this society, internet. I mean, Ramdas wasn't really that, he was already past. It's like not his time. He grew up into probably taking notes and stuff. I mean, different times. That's all I can say. So, do we really still need coffee? I mean, are we still trying to boost society? Where are we trying to get it to? Because there's too much heat. And there's too much heat in ourselves. But if I use coffee correct, and I time it, and I say, I have to be aware that coffee is a psychedelic substance. And if I drink a coffee now, and I then leave the house, I may be buzzing with energy. And the first person that comes into my path, may be the victim of my lack of control. If I drink a coffee now and then I sit in the car, which already is a reason to get angry because you've got a, difficult posture to really have energy flow properly, because you're sitting, and sitting is a bad position for your body, because your soul that resides within the body needs strength. And if you rely entirely on things like sugar, coffee, and meat for your strength, then you have no actual physical strength. And what we say is physical strength, from a different perspective, may be something entirely different. And what is it? Well, it's basically your will. You think you drink coffee because you have trouble staying awake. No, it's your will to stay awake that you need to work on. If you want to stay awake, you can stay awake without drinking coffee. It's possible. But sometimes it's better, instead of drinking another coffee, I generally, if I realize I'm really getting tired, I don't drink another coffee. I drink another coffee. Usually I drink a coffee then more in the morning or in the afternoon. If I feel really heavy, I may drink a coffee that boosts me into the day, and then I first build up the energy, which is why I probably haven't drunk a coffee in at least 12 to 48 hours. Make it 72. And when the pressure of I really want to drink a coffee builds up enough, and I feel like I'm too heavy, I can't get out of the house, I drink one coffee, and then I boost myself into life, and I, take the energy and I roll to the park. That's basically the mentality I have adopted. Simply because I feel like that's what I owe to myself, to understand what the substances I am ingesting doing in myself. I think that really made sense. I mean, I think that really made sense, and that's just self-responsibility. That's just looking at the facts. That's just taking your time. Okay, what am I actually doing? You know, like, I just slap myself left and right in the face if I want to, you know. Or I just start pounding myself with the truth of my actions and the consequences that arise from these actions. And I rather do, you know, I rather have like a life where I, you know, if there would be a wife and children right now with me, like let's say 10 children in the 20 square meter room. I mean, that can be heaven and that can be hell. If you have it all together, you can just sit there and just be present, and that's then meditation without having to close your eyes. You just love, and the love emanates out of you. And wife and, you know, 25 children and 20 square meters can just run around, and you just sit there and you're the happiest guy in the world without ever having to say a word or touch anyone. I mean, you can't say whatever you want, but you can also sit there in silence because you've learned to be silent and fine in the confines of your own room, you know, in the night. Instead of watching a movie, you just, you know, for a couple of weeks you just cling to yourself and you start sorting out your shit. And you look at, what do I feel, what do I see, what's going on. And I've done so, you know, to the point of, at times, almost vomiting. You know, you have to know your own boundaries. I drank a coffee and then I went nuts on, you know, a sheet of paper.
Motherfucking humble,
You know,
giant.
but right now I haven't drunk a coffee yet. I've eaten a pancake with, right, jam. And I just learned to overcome those feelings of happiness, of heaviness, happiness, you know. This is 18 minutes. You know, I've got a video that's 40 minutes and I feel like I have to fill it. The question is,
Do I really have to fill it? And does it really have to make sense?
well, I can certainly try to fill it. You know, I can keep talking and I can basically take anything in this room and talk about it, right? I could talk about, there's wool lying there and I'm not doing crochet. Maybe I'm not doing crochet because of the coffee that I've just drunk. Or the addiction to feeling the way that you feel when you drink coffee. It's not just the addiction, it's the holding on. Oh, this is how I think I feel good, right? You know? Let's not change that, you know? That's a bad mentality. Let's absolutely change that. Let's introduce change, right? I mean, there are things you can do that you never knew you could do simply because you're holding on to the idea that you've already figured it out. You haven't, believed me. You know, everything that I'm doing is basically dissolving boundaries. I mean, if you really need books like the Bhagavad Gita, go for it. I have no need for it. I mean, okay, it's nice that they wrote it, but it's also really old. Does the Bhagavad Gita talk about pornography and coffee? No, it does not. But I can, if I take my time to understand it. And let's say if my topic is coffee, and I want to understand what it does in myself, I can listen to this guy, but I could read Harry Potter and understand where this is coming from. I can read his dark materials. And I can probably, if I just flip through the pages, let's just have a look. I mean, no, it starts in the supple knife. They just keep drinking coffee all the time. And why? Because the guy loved drinking coffee. I mean, he was a creative man. It was part of his creative process to go to the Oxford Cafe or whatever, drink a coffee, and then start writing. Yeah, I actually read a bit about that guy. And if you read that book, it's incredible how often, I mean, these are children. Just remember that, please. The book is talking about children that just love drinking coffee. I mean, what kind of an image do you create in a child's mind? Then you can say, well, these books, I don't think they're for children. You know, I don't understand why you would worship coffee so much, because it's not the coffee that's writing the book, it's you. And that's then where we come to self-love. Why do I need the coffee? You know, some people just drink coffee so that they can, you know, relate to others. So that when they get to work and somebody says, oh yeah, this morning I got up and, you know, I drank a coffee and I felt so alive. You know, you can actually jump on that and say, oh yeah, I also drank a coffee, you know. Everybody just wants to do good. Everybody wants to just feel like, you know, I seem okay. You don't need to drink coffee, you know, just try it for 1 month. You know, drink no coffee and rub it into everybody's face that you're not drinking coffee at the moment. Just see the smiles drop off from their faces. What the fuck is this kid talking about? He's not drinking coffee? Like, what? I mean, I'm not saying I'm not drinking coffee, but there are times where I don't drink coffee. And now I'm on the verge of making one. And I've built it up. I think it's 3 days now since I haven't drunk coffee. I mean, you can do this with anything. You know, take meat. Eat no meat for 1 week. Just do it and then see how you feel. Meat is really heavy stuff. It riles you up. Try a month without sugar. But don't just not eat sugar. Really compare how you feel before and afterwards. I mean, I've met women that stopped eating sugar for 6 months. She was thin. She was a beauty. I mean, I'm not saying that thick women aren't beautiful. You know, okay, they're intimidating. Okay, I have trouble with that because I'm like a stick. I mean, you know, I'm not super skinny, but I am, you know. I'm like a skinny character, and in a way I also like skinny women, but defined. You know, not just skinny, you know, like I can hike barefoot kind of defined, you know, slim, you know, I watch my weight. I never liked women that gained weight because it means there are things that they either don't understand or they just don't care. And why don't you care? I mean, you should care. This is your body, and inside is your heart, your soul, your everything. So please explain to me, how could this be improved with drinking a coffee? Here it is, he said when he was sure. Ah, I see it. She was agog. Her demon, blah, blah, blah. You know, I don't really care. Blah, blah, my Oxford. I cannot read stuff anymore. But the books are certainly nice. You know, if you have never read them, I've read them too often. You know, I just have to pick it up and I know the whole story.
What is he? A friend or an enemy? He is a murderer.
You know, you can just, you know, if you just pile it up. I just came back from an insane night of, you know, I recorded videos, I don't carried like a giant tree trunk around. And then I played frisbee with a friend, and then, you know, after the beating ourselves up with the disc, you know, we kept beating ourselves up with our minds. You know, it's like we're trying to each torture each other and just see if the other person will crack, right? You know, can I have the upper footing on that guy? Just with my intellect, just by talking, you know? Can I push you into a corner? You know, this is then at the end what friends turn out to be. You know, people who try to drive you insane constantly. And this is then what family turns out to be. You know, it's like, you cannot control me. Everybody says that. But, you know, we're sure gonna try to control you. Because, I mean, you're pushing it too far. I mean, that's insane. I mean, you're too free. You know, how can this be? I mean, whatever enlightenment is, you know, whatever you have looks pretty close to it. And that's just a direction. You know, what's the point of being jealous? It's destructive energy. You know, just allow me to be the way I am, and then be the way you are. And in order to be the way you are, you have to understand, wait, who could I be if I were less angry? Oh, maybe I should switch to green tea for some time. Just try it. 1 month. Already, the idea of replacing coffee with green tea could drive you insane. But to actually do it, I mean, that's when the fun starts. And then after 1 month, you just sit down, you go to a restaurant, or you just sit at home, you brew yourself a coffee, and you drink that. And then you have a piece of paper in front of you, and you just start drawing, or you just start writing, and you just see what comes out. This is how I use psychedelics. Because coffee is a psychedelic, sugar is a psychedelic, meat is a psychedelic, because you are psychedelic. You are a psychedelic, and that's what the idea of the guru is about. If you manage to keep it all inside, or to keep channeling it, then people can get high just by being in your presence. And that's a little weird to a lot of people, but that's your ticket to keep living your life the way you've lived it, with the realization, wow, I really think I'm enlightened. And when you are there and you light the bulb for others, you don't actually have to do anything. It's gonna explain itself. And that's the really weird part, and that's the really nice part, and that's the part where you say, yeah, I think I'm gonna start listening to someone else. Right? I mean, and then you're just gonna pack your things, and you're gonna leave, because I'm too much for you, and you just realized it. And that's also an honest approach, because I'm not for everyone, right? Mostly I'm also for myself. I'm for the visions I've been given, and I'm for the mission of just making you realize that there is a lot of potential, and that most people haven't even tapped their little toe into it. I mean, what? What's Einstein? He just barely scratched the surface. You know, E equals MC squared. That's as far as he could go. It makes no sense. Because he never learned. You know, he talks about relativity, but he actually didn't understand it. He just wrote something down, right? And that was supposed to sound really smart. You know, if he wanted to explain what he found, if he actually would have understood it, which he never did, he was just supposed to represent it. People probably gave him LSD because he was being funded by the government. I mean, they give people drugs so that they come up with ideas, and they just see how they can make money with that. E equals MC squared is complete bullocks. And that guy never understood anything, because if he did, he would have written countless books about the way he feels about relativity, but he did not do that. Which is why there was no deeper understanding. He just sat down and thought about, what could I do that makes me look really smart. That guy was a complete idiot. And that's why he allowed himself to be managed, and he gave speeches about war and whatever. I mean, that guy was a complete idiot. It was like they were trying to do like Hitler version 2 or something. I don't even know when he existed. And it doesn't matter, because he was a phony. Because if I cannot explain to you relativity in a way that you can relate to it, you know, it's all relative. Relate. You know, you have different experiences than me. How do you feel about coffee? This is how I feel about it. You know, I just ate, now I have to defecate. Maybe I should eat less. Or do I need the food? Do I need to eat this kind of food? Do I really need the coffee to survive? How will I feel if I manage to survive without coffee for an entire year? I will feel completely different and way less riled up.